I'm standing in my apartment, phone in hand, as I watch her words appear on the screen. A chilling goodbye, a manipulative goodbye, a desperate attempt to keep me tethered to her. The words are laced with venom, a cold calculation that makes my skin crawl. How did it come to this? How did a relationship that started with so much promise devolve into a toxic nightmare? I met her in August 2022, and from the very beginning our dynamic was intense. We would talk for hours, and I found myself drawn to her passion, her energy. She was charming, charismatic, and I was swept up in the whirlwind of our budding relationship. I had recently moved to the city, and she lived in her mother's basement apartment, a place that felt claustrophobic, suffocating. But I didn't care. I was too caught up in the excitement of it all. She would call me every day, sobbing hysterically about the bullying she claimed to be experiencing at work. I would listen, trying to offer words of comfort, trying to be the rock she needed. And she would pivot, always pivoting, making the conversation about herself, her problems, her fears. As the months went by, I started to notice a pattern. She would manufacture crises, create drama out of thin air, and then expect me to be her emotional pacifier. I would try to talk about my own day, my own struggles, but she would get angry, pivot the conversation back to herself. I felt like I was walking on eggshells, never knowing when she would blow up, never knowing when she would unleash her wrath. And yet I stayed. I stayed because I felt responsible, because I felt like I needed to be there for her. I stayed because I didn't know any better. But then, something shifted. She started to deploy a psychological attack, retroactively convincing me that a past sexual incident was actually sexual assault. I was reeling, unsure of what to do, unsure of how to process this new information. I went to therapy, trying to make sense of it all, but she got angry, started a fight. We reconciled, had sex, and went for a hike, but the tension was palpable. She started to nitpick me, using heavy therapy speak to make me feel like I was the one who was broken. We drafted a plan to fix the relationship, but it felt like a trap, a way for her to control me, to manipulate me. The months that followed were a blur of anxiety, of fear. She would get paranoid, accusing me of ignoring her, of ghosting her. She would text me from fake numbers, try to test me, try to see if I was worthy of her love. I was trapped, caught in a cycle of guilt and shame. I felt like I was walking on thin ice, never knowing when she would snap, never knowing when she would unleash her fury. And yet I stayed. I stayed because I felt like I had to, because I felt like I was the only one who could save her. The first Christmas was a disaster. We spent the day with her family, and I got along great with them. But when we went back to the basement apartment, she started a vicious fight about our sex life. I was taken aback, unsure of how to respond. We decided to drive to my hometown to get a hotel, but the trip was a nightmare. We fought every day, and I felt like I was losing myself, like I was disappearing into the abyss of her madness. The carbon monoxide detector went off, and I jumped up to evacuate, but she got mad at me for panicking. I was working in the lobby, trying to meet a deadline, but she was furious, accusing me of not protecting her from her own accident trauma. The power outage was the final straw. I mentioned it, and she snapped, "Yeah, I know, obviously, you idiot." I felt like I had been punched in the gut, like I had been slapped in the face. I was in a deep freeze response, unable to move, unable to speak. She kicked at me, trying to get away, but I didn't register the kick until she apologized later. I was numb, frozen in fear. When I finally left, she drove me home, broke down crying, and begged me to stay. I comforted her, stayed with her, because I didn't know what else to do. The months that followed were a blur of somatic policing, of emotional hostage-taking. She became hyper-fixated on my physical body, my expressions, accusing me of being deceptive. She monitored my facial expressions obsessively, accusing me of lying if I scratched my nose because of a stray beard hair. She attacked me for not moving my lips enough when I spoke, framing my natural speaking style as malicious hiding. I felt like I was living in a nightmare, like I was trapped in a never-ending cycle of fear and anxiety. The first camping trip was a disaster. She grabbed me by the back of the neck, like a misbehaving dog, because I was asking questions and crowding her. I was taken aback, unsure of how to respond. The rest of the trip was a blur of anxiety, of fear. I felt like I was walking on eggshells, never knowing when she would blow up, never knowing when she would unleash her wrath. The year 2024 was an absolute gauntlet of isolation, manufactured crises, and abuse. She forced an intervention regarding my dad's drinking, dragged me to Al-Anon, and then accused me of trying to trauma bond and secretly cheat on her with women there. She hallucinated that a random woman was my cousin, and when I applied logic, she attacked me for not supporting her. She picked a sleep deprivation fight over a trivial disagreement about a movie, keeping me awake arguing. She imposed a vacation tax, demanding we not sit around my mom's house. She framed my desire to see my own father on Father's Day as a betrayal that interrupted her hike and ignored her discomfort. The physical boundary violations were constant. She put her hand down my pants as a joke, and when I objected, she didn't apologize. She interrogated me about childhood trauma, argued until I caved, claiming she should have 24/7 access to my body. I felt like I was losing myself, like I was disappearing into the abyss of her madness. The final camping trip was the final straw. I messed up cooking pancakes on a camp stove, and she completely lost her mind, screamed at me, called me a f***ing arsler, weaponizing my ADHD trauma I had confided in her about, and threatened to tell other campers I was an abusive person. I was taken aback, unsure of how to respond. I felt like I was trapped, like I was caught in a cycle of fear and anxiety. The months that followed were a blur of anxiety, of fear. I woke up every single morning with severe stomach anxiety, immediately thinking, I can't do this today. She was pushing to move us to other towns/cities far away because she hated her toxic job. She had an identity crisis, threatened suicide, explicitly trying to force me to break up with her so she wouldn't feel guilty about taking her own life. I stayed to keep her alive, but I knew I couldn't stay forever. The breaking point came on December 1st, 2024. She was complaining about her life, and I calmly suggested journaling. She attacked me for not being supportive, and my subconscious took the wheel. You're right. I'm not a supportive partner. I can't do this anymore. She tried to convince me that my healthy boundary was a mental breakdown, but I knew it was time to leave. I formally ended the romantic relationship, but she didn't go quietly. She wrote a letter, demanded another 2 weeks, and dictated I lie to my family at Christmas and say we were on a break. The final breakup call took 6.5 hours, from 11:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. I didn't eat all day, unsure of what to expect. When she realized she couldn't break me, she turned cold. Well, you got what you wanted. She sent camping photos to guilt me, manipulated me by saying, I love you so much it would be hard to see you. But I knew it was over. I put my oval glasses back on, a symbol of my reclaiming, my newfound freedom. The months that followed were a blur of healing, of recovery. She intentionally left trivial items at my apartment, demanding money for a shared tent and dining shelter. She breadcrumbed me, setting a pickup date, ghosting me, and then texting me with excuses. But I didn't bite. I politely replied, reach out whenever you're ready, and then blocked her on my gaming console, professional networks, and my phone. I sold the tent and dining shelter, retiring the camping wagon I used to use with her, permanently upgrading my life. I took money my dad reimbursed me for concert tickets and bought a portable washing machine, a symbol of my newfound independence. I had a dream about her creepy male friend trying to make me jealous, but I responded with complete apathy. My subconscious is finally entirely free. I am free. Were you ever in a relationship that felt like a toxic nightmare? How did you escape? And what did you learn from the experience? If you made it this far, thank you for watching. Drop your verdict in the comments below, subscribe for new stories every single day, and hit the notification bell so you never miss one.